All right, so let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Welcome everyone to our first panel in the Lift Every Voice Black Alumni Across the Industry panel series, featuring our alumni in the healthcare, science, and research industries. My name is Letitia Taylor, and I'm the Director of Alumni Career and Personal Development with VCU Office of Alumni Relations. Before I turn it over to our wonderful moderator for today's conversation, I would like to go over just a few housekeeping points. We will be recording this afternoon's event, so don't worry. If you blinked a little too hard and missed a few seconds of the discussion, a recording will be available. I would like to thank those that were able to submit questions to our panelists while registering. We will try to get to as many questions submitted as possible. Feel free to submit questions via the Q&A pane of the control panel that you should see at the bottom of your screen. As we get through today's conversation, we will continue with questions that have been submitted during the event if time allows. Lastly, with respect for our time during this 1 hour long event, we have placed or we will be placing a link in the chat for you to conveniently learn more about our moderator and panelists. So there's where you can see their bios and what is it that they are doing. Without further ado, I would now like to turn it over to our moderator, 2018 Humanities and Sciences alumnus Henry Lewis III, who is the founder and owner of Lewis Wellness Solutions, LLC.
All right, thank you, Letitia. Happy to be here. As Letitia mentioned, our panelists' full bios can be found with the link that was placed in the chat. I'll be providing a brief intro for our panelists to welcome them to the conversation. Today, we will hear from 2009 Humanities and Sciences graduate Lester Brown III, an analytical scientist with Tridigar Corporation in Richmond, Virginia. We will hear from 2014 Humanities and Sciences alumna and 2019 School of Medicine alumna, Dr. Toni Marie Chandler, an internal medicine resident physician with Morristown Medical Center in Morristown, New Jersey. We will also hear from 2009 Humanities and Sciences alumnus and 2012 School of Business alumnus, AJ Jackson, Director of Clinical Research with Dominion Medical Associates Incorporated in Richmond, Virginia. And last but not least, we will hear from 2013 Humanities and Sciences graduate, Kieran Phillip, forensic scientist and founder of Sure Science Consulting in Toronto, Canada. Thank you all so much for being here. Let's go ahead and jump into our first question. So Dr. Chandler, what is something you found most helpful in navigating your career?
So I would say the thing that's been most helpful are people who have kind of gone through this process before me. So I actually have two cousins who are physicians. One's a urologist and one's an ER physician. So having the chance to talk with them and kind of see the process in which they've gone through, how they decided to even go into this field, how they chose a school, and how they ended up deciding like what specialty they went into was very helpful. Especially being African American, there's not a lot of physicians. There's not a lot of us at all. So kind of understanding how they navigated it and having some support and mentorship doing that was very helpful.
Awesome, awesome. And we're actually going to get into mentorship soon. So that's a great thing you mentioned that. AJ, what about you?
I would say the same thing. It's really having people that have gone before, that have, kind of blazed the trail, give you guidance. That really has benefited me the most, because you'll find that when you get into the professional world, there are a lot of people that don't necessarily want to share experiences with you or kind of give you guidance on things that may be widely known to people that have been in the field for a long time, but unknown to newer people, which kind of keeps them from getting a head start. So I have a lot of physicians in my family as well. So being on the research side of things, they've helped me to, when I, let's say, take on a study, an indication that I'm not, really familiar with, something outside of the norm that we'll normally study. I can lean on, let's say I have my aunt in California, she's a OBGYN, but she also deals with other women's health issues. So we were approached to do a study about postpartum depression. And, on this side of the country, we have internists and anesthesiologists in the family that don't really, know too much about, that field, but I was able to lean on her, and she referred colleagues to me that, also had insight on how to best approach the study and approach patients in the study.
Right.
So that kind of guidance, has been very helpful, most helpful to me.
Right. It seems like it's very hands-on. It's very helpful to have, our mentors, supervisors, family, especially when they're hands-on. I think that makes your career a lot better. Kieran, what skills and characteristics have served you the best in persisting toward your goals?
That's a very good question. I'm definitely persisting. Right now, I don't have a full-time job in science. And so what has been very helpful for me has been transferable skills. I would always say, well, let me paraphrase something from another scientist, Science Sam. She always says that the science is not completed unless it's communicated. And communication has always been a big thing for me. I like presenting, I like speaking, I like writing, I like editing. And so I've really been able to use those skill sets, which really have come out of my work as a scientist. When you have to write research papers and you have to do a lot of revisions, you really get good at communicating science. And that will always spill over into other things. So I've been able to take those skill sets, public speaking, writing, and editing, and actualize them as a consultant. So that's the work that I do mainly with Shore Science Consulting. So I think transferable skills are always going to be a big thing for us.
Absolutely. I have to echo that. Lester, what about you? What do you think about that?
So give me the question again. I think it cut out for just a second, but go ahead.
Sure. What skills and/or characteristics have served you the best in persisting toward your goals?
Okay. So I would definitely echo what Kieran said was transferable skills. That was one thing when I was looking to make the jump from graduation into looking for my first position. My first job was, it may not have had direct mapping, like, a lot of undergraduate research or whatnot to end up in, maybe a higher level technician role or a scientist role, but trying to create that narrative of, well, I've had this leadership experience or this experience in a lab or this, and crafting that to hopefully create a good story for why I would be a great candidate. The other one is persistence and determination. Just every day, it has to be something that you have a passion for and a drive for, and even the days when it goes great and the days when it really doesn't go great. It's just something that will continue to pull you through. So a passion for what you're doing, that one's big for me.
Absolutely. Persistence, passion, all of that. And that's definitely something when I worked as a PreHealth advisor at VCU, I talked a lot about students, a lot with students. Dr. Chandler, how do you manage the idea of imposter syndrome in your industry?
So that's actually an interesting question. It's hard because, especially in the field that I'm in, there's always this kind of sense of you don't belong. This more so because there's not a lot of us, and also a lot of times people don't really expect me to be the doctor. I have been asked and been told that I've been a lot of different other things. I think my first year of residency, someone thought I was janitorial staff instead of the doctor, even though I've never seen a janitor wear a white coat. But it's hard because, like, a lot of people don't expect us to be the top position or the ones who are taking care of patients, especially in healthcare. So you kind of have to navigate that. But I think the main thing is I became a doctor mainly because I wanted to help African American communities, and I wanted people to see us and have people who they can understand and can go to, especially from a cultural standpoint. So it's something you kind of have to just deal with every day. Basically, I kind of just tell myself, like, I'm meant to be here. I got to this point. and you kind of just have to keep pushing every single day. And then when you see, especially for me, when I see patients, especially patients who are African American, who I've taken care of, do well, and they come and thank you for that, it really gives me the motivation to kind of keep pushing forward. So it's a day by day thing, but you kind of just push through it and keep going.
Right. Lester, what about you? How do you manage the idea of imposter syndrome in your industry?
Yeah, when I saw this one on the prep materials, I had to like really kind of stop for a second and think about it. And as far as, managing the idea that for some reason I didn't earn my way to be here, no, I put in the work just like everybody else. I mean, I've had some of the opportunities or the luxuries that others did, but the work is the work, and the body of it should speak for itself as to why I've earned the right to be here. And it is something that we've all encountered, is having to defend yourself and your positions on weekly, monthly, yearly, sometimes a daily basis. Like, well, why you versus somebody else? I was like, because I brought something unique to your needs. I'm going to bring something unique to your team. I'm going to help make everybody else better around me, and not in a smug way or whatnot. It's just, no, if I join a team, I'm here and I'm committed to the team and help elevate everybody, and they're going to do the same for me. So, yeah, it's something that you just push through and know that, you've done the work and you deserve to be there.
Right. I used to tell students that all the time, and I had a few of them come to me and say like, "Hey, I'm experiencing this thing that I've learned about and called imposter syndrome, and really just don't know how to manage it." And what I would tell a lot of them is, you're in college, you're getting this degree, you have so many talents and skills. You belong here, and you belong in this career, and you're going to do great. So use that to really, make yourself feel comfortable and confident, in your role. So awesome for both of you. AJ, have you ever had to hide and or tone down your Blackness in order to break into your profession? This is a good one.
So one thing about the field of clinical research, which is different than the greater field of medicine, being a physician, is that it's heavily minority dominated. Women make up the vast majority of people I interact with when it comes to site auditing, startup activities, contracting, budgeting, supply chain. Lots of, at least on our side of the country, you see a lot of African American women working at, across the spectrum of positions. So, and also, which makes research a little unique, is that data from minority populations is more and more important than ever. So we see that with COVID, high death rates among Black populations. We're in Richmond, Virginia, as you know. We're a heavily minority dominated city. So we find that we get some opportunities that other sites may not, because we service, we have we're about 88% of our patient population is African American. And they have either some or neutral interest in research. So we're able to get involved in studies that are either later in phase. We have a lot of, for example, type 2 diabetics, about maybe 12,000 plus diabetics just as active patients. So we partner a lot with Novo Nordisk, who has a couple of popular products up now. They've got Ozempic, and they have an oral version called Rybelsus, which they just started showing commercials on. So we've been studying both drugs for about 6 years, and now they're at the point where they're going to mass market, but there's still follow-up studies that they'll do on the long-term cardiovascular safety. With diabetics, there are a lot of eye conditions, diabetic retinopathy that you have to look out for. So we've gotten involved in studies that are open label, meaning that there's no placebo, it's the actual drug, and we can approach patients in the practice that may not have their blood sugar well controlled, and offer them participation if they fit certain criteria, and we can people find reassurance in that the medication's already FDA approved. So one, it allows us to help, see the effectiveness of the drug kind of in real time. And even though all research is blinded, there are certain ways, if it's an open label study, people are actually getting the medication, and we can collect the data, because that's what's really important. So, I don't know if I was the best example for this question, but it's refreshing that this is a field across clinical research, like I said, all the way from pharmacists, all the way down to supply chain, that it's lots of minority involvement.
No, awesome. No, you're definitely the right person for this question. Thank you for that. Kieran, what about you? Have you ever had to hide or tone down your Blackness in order to break into your profession?
Well, I'm really glad that question came, because for me, I'm from the smallest country in the Western Hemisphere. I'm from the twin island nation of St. Kitts and Nevis in the Caribbean. And I came to VCU as an international student. And I came from a very different context, to come and do a graduate degree in Richmond, Virginia. And for me, it was, it definitely needed some changes. My personality, I think, was fine, but how I interacted with people and how I thought about the scientific process and being a professional and having to prove yourself, it's much more competitive and cutthroat, let me say that as well, in the Caribbean. And I think that really, was not the best thing for me to do. And I realized that late in grad school, actually. And so I really had to readjust to become a more collaborative personality, and so that really was part of my Blackness, being a Caribbean person. But I had to really learn to readjust that and become better as a collaborator to work with people.
Mm-hmm.
So that was me. That was my breaking into the field, as somebody from the Caribbean.
Yeah. Adjustment is so key, in getting into your profession. So awesome for that. Let's see. Lester, how have the roles of mentors impacted your career?
Greatly. And actually, it was funny. I was scrolling through the chat feed and looking at who was in attendance, and Marilyn Day, who was a former VCU employee and worked in academic advising. When I saw her name, I was like, and it took me right back to my first few years and having some struggles in making the adjustment from, a smaller school to VCU. And like she was there with me, like step by step, and providing guidance and mentorship. And I would say I was really fortunate to kind of have a spectrum of mentors my entire time through VCU. I started with her and one Kachila James as well in the same department. And then progressing, as I started doing more of my major courses, finding, a few mentors in the chemistry department, humanities and sciences, Dr. Charlene Crawley, who was really great and available. I think she was one of, few minorities that were actually in the department that had significant title. So being able to lean on her. And then as I kind of branched out into more opportunities at the campus, having the chance to work with the Career Center and working with Mr. Joseph Lyons, who I think is also in attendance today. He was a great mentor as far as getting my mind kind of in line with understanding the power of leadership and peer mentorship. So I had the chance to be mentored, and then the chance to go in and share my experiences with other students. And then towards the end of my time in the chemistry department, having a research professor that was able to see potential in me that I may not have seen at first, and kind of mentor me through, the tougher days, which is that back to that determination and passion, like when it's really going wrong, and just to be a word or just it's fine, keep pushing. We've all been there.
Right.
And that's why I'll always reach out and volunteer for these kinds of things, to provide my experience, and maybe it'll be of value to somebody. It may not be, but I consider mentorship to be high in my core values or that kind of thing. So.
Awesome. And I love that you mentioned, Mrs. Marilyn Day, because I had the great opportunity to work with her when I was an academic advisor, and she's an excellent mentor to students, faculty, and other advisors. So yes, mentorship is so important. And Dr. Chandler, you talked about mentorship earlier on, and as a former PreHealth advisor, I know, and definitely in medicine, mentorship is excellent. So can you talk a little bit about that as well for you?
Yeah, sure. I wouldn't be here without my mentors, especially during med school. Med school was rough, especially my last year, my fourth year. There's a lot of things that happened. My brother got sick, had a lot of family members who passed away in a very short span. And it also was occurring while I was taking my board exams and applying for residency. So there was a time frame where I was really questioning whether or not I should continue going on, whether I should take a break. And Dr. Donna Jackson and Dr. Whitehurst Cook, who work in the admissions office at VCU, were like, absolutely not. You're gonna get through this. You're gonna be fine. You're gonna be able to get through it. And they were mentors for me the entire time I was in medical school, but especially during that time when I was really struggling. They were the ones who kind of helped push me. Also, my family as well. I mean, your mentors can be anyone. Your family has been great mentorship for me. I'm pretty sure I've driven all of my family members crazy with a lot of things that have gone on, but they have definitely been a huge support system. And then also with this pandemic, I mean, it's been a very interesting and very tenuous year, especially the things that we have seen in the hospital. I just got off of working in the COVID ICU, and it's a lot that's going on. This can be difficult, and it can be difficult not only for the patients and their families, but also for us as well. A lot of it's taxing in every possible way, from a physical standpoint, mentally and emotionally. So to have those people to lean on is really important, and that's why I am a mentor for people as well. So I've been doing mentoring since college, and then especially when I got into medical school, I helped mentor pre-med students as well. Because I mean, knowing the things that I've gone through, I want to give back and have people not go through the struggles I have as much as possible, or at least have some guidance to people. So mentorship is key. It's absolutely key.
Yeah. It takes a village. I definitely wouldn't be here without the mentors that I've had. So, I absolutely agree with that. Kieran, if there was a book or article that you would suggest for our audience today, what would that be?
Man, I don't know. Don't have one in mind right now, but certainly in terms of a whole journal collection, in terms of looking at science and particularly forensic science, there's a lot of good work going on. So, I mean, I have to go back to the Journal of Forensic Science. The Journal of Forensic Science is, it's important to remember for us that forensic science is a collection of several disciplines, and there really is a lot of work going on. And it always surprises me, like, you think something like fingerprints, everything has been done, and like there's a preponderance of new publications that come out all the time. So definitely, for my profession, that's the #1 journal.
Awesome. AJ, what about you?
So as far as a book I'd recommend?
A book or an article? Yeah.
So all right, it's not completely scientific. I'm a father of 3, had my son was born January 1st, 2021. So there was a book I read back in 2014 when my first daughter was born. It was called The Book You Wish Your Parents Had Read, and your kids are glad you did, your children are glad that you did. And it's it's a book that's supposed to help you kind of take a better look at yourself, your background, and see how your own personal experience projects onto your relationship with your children. Because I found it to be important for that reason, that it helped me, because everybody wants to be a good parent. I wanted to be a good father, and I kind of took lessons that I had learned, or things that I liked and I didn't like from when I was coming up. And the book kind of helps you put things in perspective and helps you relate better to your kids.
Mhm.
So that was important because it also has helped me in management a lot, because it's all about relationship building and being able to relate with the other person. So it could be, you could take it, it's meant for your child, but you can take it to an employee. If you have an employee that you want to get a certain result from, you have to learn how to communicate with that employee and understand that they are themselves their own person with their own feelings and thoughts and feelings and needs. So that book, because everything else I'm just reading like protocols and clinical stuff, but I find that that book alone really kind of helped to shape me as a parent, and also helps shape how I deal with my employees on site. Is the book you wish your parents had read and your kids are glad that you did. I think that's the name of the book. So that's what I'm rolling with right now, because I'm exhausted, but I'm happy because I've done my job. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you have. I'm gonna have to check that out, actually.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Here's a question from our attendees. What's one thing you wish you could tell your younger self while a student at VCU? This is for anyone.
Go to class. No matter what, go to class.
Anyone else?
I would definitely tell myself, oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I would definitely tell myself that, you are enough. It was really tough for a while in grad school, really thinking that I wasn't getting those opportunities. I wasn't getting those scholarships. I wasn't getting the internships that I wanted. But, you are enough. Like, I had all the information, I had all the skills, I had all the intelligence that I needed to be able to go through and really be successful and make something of this profession. So definitely, tell myself that, because there was a time I was really low in grad school.
Dr. Chandler?
Oh, I would tell myself to have more fun. I think I was a little, it paid off, but I think I was a little too serious in college. And I think I missed out on some opportunities just to kind of relax, and you definitely need those moments. So I think you need to have a good balance of enjoying college and enjoying the experience and having fun and, doing some not so wild things, but at the same time being serious with school as well.
I would definitely have to agree with that one, Dr. Chandler. I used to have, especially being a former PreHealth advisor, what it's like to be a PreHealth student. They come to you, they're so focused on, I got to get this grade, I got to be part of this activity, that they lose sight of, just enjoying life and enjoying all the different things that you're going to learn on that journey to medicine. So I definitely have to agree with that one. Anything from you, Lester? What do you think about that?
No, they need a good sampling of things, like, have a little bit more fun.
Mm-hmm.
Just, take it all in stride, and make the most of all opportunities that were put in front of you. I know there's probably one or two occasions where there may have been something and I didn't take full advantage of it because of being young and thinking I knew more than I did. But otherwise, there's not much of a change because it's brought me to where I am now. So,
right. Awesome. Dr. Chandler, we have a question specifically for you. Let's see here. What are your thoughts on reproductive justice in minority women? Why are minority women being mistreated in the system?
That is a very multifaceted question. So my thoughts on reproductive justice. So I think it's kind of a hard question to answer. So I believe that everyone should have the opportunity to have control and autonomy over their own body. And I think it's harder for minority women, more so because of the lack of access. So a lot of times when you think of this topic in terms, think of like abortion laws, but I think it's a bigger issue than that. So you gotta think about access. So I mean, when having the access to appropriate healthcare, having the access to having like contraception, having access to basically to everything is hard, and it's more difficult for minority women. And then because of that, then you get to the point where, let's say someone gets pregnant and there's financial issues and there's other things that are going on and they don't know what to do. At that point, I think it's already too late. I think you got to take a step back and think and kind of go further than that. And then because of that, you start seeing the down trickle effects of minority women being more affected and disproportionately affected in healthcare. And I think that issue is also more multifaceted too, because it's social determinants of health, it's financial, it's socioeconomic, it's where people living, it's also a racial issue, and it's also systemic racism issue. Because you think about in terms of minority women who are pregnant, I think we're like 3 or 4 times, last time I checked, more likely of dying from complications of childbirth than anyone else.
Yeah.
And that should not be happening. And so that's one issue. And then I think another fact is, I think there's this idea, not just with minority women, but with minority men, that we just have higher pain tolerances and that we can just deal with things more so than other races, which makes absolutely no sense to me. So I think it's a lot of unconscious bias that are also playing a role, and it's unconscious bias for everyone. So I think healthcare professionals specifically have to kind of have that understanding that there is that bias, and we have to actively understand that and actively realize it. And when we're taking care of our minority population, especially our minority women, we have to understand that and then really take what they're telling us at face value. Because I've seen it at work where there's a white patient and they're sitting there in pain and no problem, we'll give them pain meds. But then it's a Black patient and there's always like this question behind it, and I don't understand. And it's like, why is there a question when they're having pain but not with others? So just again, it's just something you have to be aware of, and I think it's a learning process and being educated about it and having people be aware of it.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned unconscious bias, because while that's definitely prevalent in medicine, it's so prevalent in really all of our industries, and I think all of us can probably speak to that type of experience in our work setting as well. So it's very prevalent in all of what we do. I have another question from the audience. What impact or imprint do you feel you have made on the Black community in respect to your field or profession? So this is for anyone.
I can answer. As part of the Black community, we strive to make sure that we respect our patients and respect people that participate in our clinical trials. So I feel that we are able to take someone who may be completely skeptical of all modern medicine, be at a point with their health that they're, approaching the ledge. If you don't get, if I have someone whose blood sugar is out of control, if I have someone who has really bad heart failure, and they're constantly in the ER, won't take their medication, but if somehow, and we've had situations where we can entice people to at least come and talk to us about their medications by providing free transportation. We can give people meals. We can set up meetings where we can have kind of group lunch and learns with a physician. We can invite sets of patients in that, normally don't like coming to the doctor, and give them at least some insight onto why it's important to maintain your health, what the medication's actually doing, what your condition is actually. For example, we'll have people that'll think diabetes is a virus, or people think that, not be fully informed on like how their body is reacting, what's happening to them. We're able to give information and do it in such a way where it's not a pressure situation, where it's, hey, at the end of the day, even if you don't participate, in the study. We want you to get better. Like we can offer people dietary counseling. We have dietitians that work with us for free. So we just try to give back or better inform people, at least the people that we can touch, can physically interact with, about why it's important to take care of your health in a way that may involve, it may not be what you like. It's not just an herbal cleanse, or it's not just, staying away from sweets every now and then. It's like, we show people the data. We're like, hey, there's a reason that we see African Americans having to go through amputations or going blind from diabetes or having all these issues. It's because if you just maintain your medication like you would maintain going to the store on the weekend to get wine or beer, or make it part of your routine. Understand that these medications have been around for a long time, that they're safe. We're monitoring you. Just kind of give people support so that they can go out and make an impact on other people that they may interact with. With all the churches in our area, we have a lot of people that are congregants of those churches, and they have concerns, but there are things that aren't really openly discussed in a church setting when it comes to modern medicine and health. So yeah, we feel that if we can just make an impact on our patients, our patient population in general, and have them understand, like, okay, yeah, just like I have to get an oil change for my car, just like I have to keep maintenance on, whatever your recreation is, you have to do the same thing for yourself at a certain point in your life. We're not all going to be 20. I'm 41 now. I'm coming up on some routine exams that I have to get that I never had to worry about when I was 20. But at the end of the day, you have to do what you got to do. So I feel that the biggest impact that have given is at least try to educate people so they can make decisions not out of fear, but out of understanding.
Right. I can't agree with that, anymore. It's one thing to tell people, like, you must eat well, you must exercise, a lot of what you were saying. But when people really understand the significance of what all that means as it relates to their well-being, their longevity, just their entire lives that impact them and their family and social life, people understand it a little bit more and probably are more willing to go ahead and change those behaviors. So education, information, all of that is key. Thank you for that. Kieran, what about you? Let's talk about a little bit about what you feel your impact on the Black community is.
Well, I would like to say that I've had a big impact on the Black community in my small little country. Again, I come from the Twin Island nation of St. Kitts and Nevis in the Caribbean. And after grad school, I was really hoping to get employed in the United States. I was really hoping to stay in Richmond, but that did not work out. So I ended up returning to my country. And, thanks to some good connections that I had, I was actually able to become the first civilian hired as a crime scene investigator by the police. So I came into a profession that was heavily law enforcement oriented, heavily law enforcement dominated. And, I was a civilian guy with dreadlocks, coming in as a scientist. And it was a big change, and I really helped to spearhead a developmental change across the whole agency. We went from having a crime scene unit, which was basically just people going out to scenes and collecting a bunch of stuff and bringing it back, to having a forensic department with people who are making informed choices about how we can collect the right evidence, how we can collect evidence and keep it well preserved, how we can collect evidence and where we can send this evidence to make connections between victims and suspects, or between suspects and scenes. And so, I really am proud of what I accomplished. In 2018, that was the first year that we actually had a forensic lab of any kind in my country, and I was the guy chosen to become the manager for that. So I managed a staff of 4. And, in my time, I didn't stay there too long, 1.5 years, but in my time, we worked on over 250 cases. And, we mainly did fingerprinting. So we were able to develop and enhance over 500 latent prints on a variety of objects collected from scenes. And we made a lot of identifications. One of the ones I'm most proud of, there was a murder where a sergeant of police, a guy that I actually had worked with, he was killed. And one of the items collected in connection with that investigation, I was the guy that found a latent print on it that identified somebody who might have been involved in a series of gun-related crimes, also related to his murder. So, I would like to think I've had a big impact, before me. When you go to court for these cases, you were seeing a lot of police officers and lawyers were really not impressed, particularly defense attorneys. And then, with me now, everybody said that they noted a change. They noted a change in how people would present evidence, how people would answer to cross-examination. And so, I would like to think I had a big impact, definitely for my country.
You definitely have, and I commend you on that.
Thanks a lot, man.
This question is for any of our panelists. Due to COVID-19, what approach would you suggest on addressing the exposure of health inequity within Black and Brown communities? And this is for any of our panelists.
Yeah, so health inequities. So you're saying, repeat the question one more time.
Yeah, so due to COVID-19, what approach would you suggest on addressing the exposure of health inequity within Black and Brown communities?
That's a good question. I would say, at least where we are, the data kind of speaks for itself on hospitalizations. You see rates higher amongst Black and Brown communities. So addressing the exposure inequity, I would say we just have to use this as a learning experience. I mean, just cycles have to be broken, mindsets have to change. I still have people in my family who are very anti-vaccine. And the reasons that they give, are kind of what you hear somewhat in the broader community, just a mistrust, I don't know what's in the vaccine, I put my faith in the Lord, I pray, I try to, eat, stay away from people and take supplements and vitamins. And I think that we just need to, and I think it's already happening with more minorities in the field of science. When they talk about COVID a lot on TV, you'll see African-American health professionals really getting involved, and scientists in talking to their own communities about the vaccine and the science behind it. And I think that's a good start. And I think that as we, continue to move out into the world after we finish college, just spreading that message, being like, hey, listen, we realized that some terrible things happened to African Americans in the past when it came to science and medicine. Things are not always fair. Everybody always references Tuskegee, but we're in the year 2020, and it's time to let those old ghosts go. Right. It's time to move on because we've got too big of a footprint in medicine now and in science to continue to accept that, that's just a mindset some people have, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, we make up a good chunk of debt from COVID. Right. So I think it's already, the inequities are already being addressed. I think it's a slow process. I think it's a gradual process. Right. And just with our culture in America being, okay, we want it right here, right now, bring it to me now, let's do it. We've just got to slow down and realize we're moving in the right direction and to keep the momentum.
And just as you were saying,
that ultimately is,
I was just going to say, just as you were saying earlier, education and how we communicate is key, in getting rid of these inequities. So we have to continue to repeat that. Dr. Chandler, I think you were going to mention something as well.
Yeah, I think we also have to continue to positively affect our communities. Because a lot of this is also, you got to think about social determinants that really caused a lot of the minority populations to be disproportionately affected due to COVID, like access to healthcare, access to good food, housing, all, because Section 8, you think about it, Section 8 housing, think about a lot of these urban cities you have Section 8 housing, people have large families living in these small areas, and then one person gets it, and that's it for everyone else. Everyone else has a high chance of getting it. Having access to healthcare, all of the comorbidities that people at high risk of having poor outcomes with COVID, obesity, hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, those are all health issues that are predominantly affecting minority populations. And why are those affecting it? Because we're not having the best access to healthcare. We're not having the best access to food. And it's not our fault. It's just where we're living. And also, unfortunately, it goes even further back to that, and with systemic racism, it kind of all starts there, and it's been a trickle effect, and that's what we're seeing now. And I think COVID really caused not only us as a people, but the entire world to really see how it's really affecting us. So I think now that we know, and I think now that not just we know, but everyone knows, everyone needs to get together and start making strides to get to making things better for everyone, but especially for us as minorities. So I think now the acknowledgement and making those strides. So like this panel now, like, you know, all of us in these fields, we need more of us, because we're the ones who see it. We're the ones who have family members who are dealing with it. And we need more of us to affect change with our non-people of color counterparts, and make them realize too, because we need them too to help out. Like, we just can't just be us. We need everyone.
Right.
So I think continuing to do that would be great.
Right. And Dr. Chandler, I loved how you said we need more of us, because that leads me into my next question, which is, we want more of us. So what advice would you give to someone who is interested in your profession? So this is for all of you. We'll start with Lester. What advice will you give someone interested in your profession?
So I think I would give a little background of how I landed here, and then you can draw parallels to that. But for me, I had a really great experience in high school. It kind of sparked me for chemistry, and it has carried me through to this point. So having a teacher that's really good and engaging, that was a big part of it for me. As far as choosing to land in this profession, being a chemist, and being a chemist, there are so many different avenues you can take within that. You can do just pure research. You can do R&D for a large company. I mean, there's plenty of ways to take it. But I guess one of the core things is just the wanting to know the why. So there's a problem, you want to know why you're having the problem, and can you present or find a solution to it? And if not, that's fine if you don't find an answer. I had a colleague in graduate school who had a project and they could not replicate results, and tried for probably 12 to 16 months and just could not do it. And at the end, without having what you feel like a buy, you say, yes, I did it. It can feel kind of defeating, but don't forget there's as much value in the process and all the things that you learned along the way as it is the end result. So for me, kind of a core of it is just an interest in the why, and then finding a way to find an answer for it.
Yeah. Lester, I had a former supervisor who taught me and my other colleagues, trust the process. She would always lead every morning meeting with trust the process. We were so focused on, kind of those minute things that we really didn't need to trust the process. Okay.
And the other thing I would possibly add is, it was towards the end of my undergraduate studies where, it was one day, and I can kind of remember clear as a bell, sitting there, and we're working through this problem set from something, and then it was just kind of like everything snapped in place, and you realized all the components that you had worked through, it all coalesced at one point. You're like, oh, well, I need to pull that from that and that from that. And you're just like, oh, and the whole picture just falls together. So, and it's those moments, those inspirational moments that when you're feeling the tank is getting a little bit low, they help fuel you back up and keep driving. So.
Awesome. We have a few minutes left. So any of the other panelists want to answer that question? What advice would you give someone interested in your profession?
Well, I'll definitely say attend VCU. I think it's the best master's program in forensic science in the United States of America.
That's right.
Definitely, I'll say that hands down any day. But I mean, major advice I would give is that, science right now, hard skills, have become so dominant that in order to make yourself stand out, soft skills are where you need to go. If you can have any experience, in leading teams, in any activity, or, answering questions, making presentations outside of science, I mean, I think that's really going to be big coming up, in the future for any scientific career. We need people who are going to be able to communicate the science, but now you're going to have to communicate it to non-scientific audiences. So if you could really develop yourself as somebody who relates well outside of the profession, whether that be on paper with writing or, on a platform presenting, I think those transferable skills are going to be big.
Absolutely. I love that you said that because, as a former advisor, we would always tell students, don't just get involved in activities that specifically relate to your field, get involved in things that are completely outside of your field, whether it's literature or arts or dance, whatever it is, so that you can actually relate to people and communicate to everyday people. It's so important as healthcare professionals and scientists. Anyone else?
I would say just be a nice person. It's people would be shocked at how much just having respect and being kind will take you so far. I will tell you, with working with patients, no patient cares where I went to school, what grade I got on what test. They care, can you talk to me? Can you talk to me like a human being? And can you respect me? And that has taken me so much farther than anything else. I personally think that I'm like nowhere near like knowledge base for some people I work with, but I will say I've never had an issue with interacting with people, with working with people, and getting along with people. Like nurses can make your life great, or they can make your life disastrous, depending on how you interact with them. And I always keep, even if I've had issues with people on a professional level, I've always kept the level of respect, and it's taken me much farther than what I would say my knowledge base will be, because that I can build on, that I can always work on regardless. But respect and being kind to people and communicating well, that's something you learn from a young age when you grow up, and some people don't learn it that well and it causes them issues. So just being kind, I would say, is going to take you much farther than anything else.
Thank you very much for that. I definitely have to echo that. Let's give all of our panelists a round of applause virtually. Thank you all so much for your amazing advice. I know I learned a lot from you, so thank you for that.